What's up, KSR YouTube? We are breaking down the Kentucky 2024 football schedule, giving you our record predictions, an upset pick, and a hot take, and we'll start with those record predictions.
All right, my season prediction for Kentucky in 2024, I have them going 8-4, but it's a good 8-4. They're beating South Carolina, they're beating Auburn, they're going to Gainesville winning, beating Louisville in the Governor's Cup. We like that, but they're going to lose that game to Georgia and the road trips to Tennessee, Texas, and Ole Miss. The SEC did us wrong with the schedule this year, and I'd be happy with 8-4 if it goes like that.
This is one of Stoops' best team on paper, but it's not going to be one of his best records. Kentucky either goes 9-3 or 7-5. They're never in between. They're never the 8-4. Unfortunately, it's going to be more of that 7-5 because this roster is good, but the schedule, it's daunting. I know that sounds a little boring, but you'll get some good wins in there. There's going to be a big win over Ole Miss. There's going to be another win over Louisville, but I don't think the Cats can reel off 4 in a row against Florida. So go ahead, pencil in a 7-5 record for the Wildcats.
Kentucky is coming off consecutive 7-5 seasons, and I'm afraid a third one is on the way. I think it's going to be a typical season we've kind of seen from a Mark Stoops team. You'll see an upset, maybe 2, but there's going to be a game Kentucky loses, maybe 2 that they lose that I think people are going to be upset about. It's going to one you think you should win. One that really stands out is that Auburn home game, but I think the season ends with a high note. You lose to Texas, but I think Kentucky handles Louisville again to reclaim or to defend the Governor's Cup and end the season at 7-5 and head, Nashville, Memphis, maybe sneak their way to Tampa for bowl season.
I have Kentucky finishing this season 7-5 with losses to Georgia, Tennessee, Texas, Ole Miss, and Florida. But I think the gap between 7-5 and 8-4 is really small. I picked Kentucky to lose to Florida just because Mark Stoops' teams always lose a game they shouldn't. And I think that this game, the Florida game, is the most likely candidate this year. Kentucky's beaten Florida 3 years in a row. I think the Gators are very hungry to reverse that trend. Billy Napier's seat's getting a little hot, and so I think if Kentucky's going to drop a game they shouldn't, it'll be Florida. The Cats will finish 7-5.
Kentucky going 7-5 on the season with a 3-5 mark in the SEC. Coming out the gates hot with a nice win over Southern Miss and South Carolina. Drop the one to Georgia, but take a 2-1 record into that big-time Ole Miss game. Unfortunately, I don't see Kentucky being able to pull out any of these top 6 wins or top 6 opponent wins that they're going to have an opportunity with against Texas, Ole Miss, and Georgia. I do think they get that win over Louisville 6 years in a row. It's almost too easy at this point, just winning free money. I don't have really any big upset picks. Honestly, I think Kentucky goes into Florida and wins that one handily. That one might be an upset in terms of the betting odds. But otherwise, I think it's going to be a lot of chalk for this Kentucky football team.
Predicting an 8-4 record for the Kentucky Wildcats.
Now, last year, I had Kentucky at 10-2 and was a little disappointed. This year, I'm not so concerned about tearing down goalposts as I am about moving them. And that's why I got Kentucky at 6-6 this year. That schedule is really daunting. Now, the way Kentucky schedules, they'll get 3 wins automatically. Then they'll beat Vanderbilt, so there's 4. And I still think they're going to be better than Louisville. So really, you only have to win one of those remaining 7 SEC games to get to a 6-6 record. And then the Cats are going bowling again.
I am going with an 8-4 season for Mark Stoops going into his 12th season, which also aligns with my hot take, which is an 8-4 season is essentially a 9-3 year or even a 10-2 season for most seasons. This schedule is just an absolute juggernaut with so many difficult road matchups, hosting really difficult teams at home. It just kind of creates this really, really tough situation for Stoops. So kind of having to readjust our expectations, I think, is going to be a really huge thing, but 8-4 is going to be a tremendous year. That's my hot take, is that an 8-4 year is 10-2 a lot of seasons with a weaker schedule.
Spicy take. Spicy and meatball. It isn't the spiciest meatball, but it's going to be tough to swallow because Kentucky, they're always so close to Auburn. Chris Rodriguez, he runs into the end zone, but it's not a touchdown. Cam Newton, they got him on the ropes, but he drives down the field and kicks a field goal. This is going to be another close, painful loss, and that's going to be the difference between the 8-4 and the 9-3 season. I think Auburn takes a huge leap in year 2 with Hugh Freeze. They've really upgraded their talent at wide receiver, and Kentucky hasn't been great at home. It's a game they should win. It's a toss-up. They need to win, but they're not going to win. They're not going to be able to beat the Tigers at Kroger Field.
The season will be filled with some ups and downs on offense, but I think by the end of the season, the Brock Vandagriff hype train will be off and running. I think we see really in the last month in November, I think we see Vandagriff hit it to another gear, and heading into the postseason, I think there's going to be a lot of excitement for what next year could look like, and I think by Thanksgiving, a lot of people are going to believe that Vandagriff can be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC in 2025.
My hot take is Kentucky is going to finish 7-5, but that's not a bad thing. You know, on paper, it may not look very good, but look at the schedule. Kentucky plays 3 of the top 6 teams in the preseason AP poll. They play 5 of the top 25 teams. Schedule is brutal. So even though Kentucky is a better team than last year's team that finished the regular season 7-5, the schedule or the record's going to be the same, but it's not a thing to be ashamed of.
Your hot take, though, if I have to say, Brock Vandagriff finishes as a top 3 quarterback in the SEC. There's your hot take right there for you.
My hot take, Jamori Macklin ends up being the best wide receiver on this Kentucky team.
My preseason hot take, it's not really a hot take, but we've said it so many times and been wrong, it's become a hot take. I think it's tight end season. I think for the first time, Mark Stoops will have a tight end with 5 touchdown receptions, and I'll say the whole room has up to 8, maybe even 10 touchdown catches. So finally, it's tight end time in the Bluegrass.
For my hot take, I'm just going to be real with you guys. I've been a Kentucky football fan my entire life. I stormed the field in 07 when they beat LSU, stormed the field in 21 when they beat Florida, and I've been a part of several heartbreaking losses. I've learned from the last couple seasons to not set my expectations so high that I'm guaranteeing disappointment. This is not an indictment of Mark Stoops. This is just me being real as a Kentucky football fan. Let's just temper those expectations. That's how I'm going to take in the 2024 season. I'm just going to enjoy it and not get so caught up on wins and losses. Why get your hopes up for anything when it could just let you down? Now, I don't have a lot of options for an upset pick, but I think because Louisville plays in that rinky-dink conference that they're going to have a really strong record coming into Kroger Field. And for some reason, the odds will have them favored. Will make no sense, but once again, the Cats will get the win. We're still not tearing down goalposts for beating Louisville, though.
Upset pick. Kentucky plays Ole Miss well. I know people think they're going to the playoff, wild card to maybe win the SEC, but like the last game against Ole Miss, Rebels were untested going into that game, right? They hadn't played nobody yet, Paul. And that'll be the case this year. Kentucky will have 2 SEC games under their belt. Brock Vandagriff's going to run out and punch them in the mouth and hand Ole Miss a big fat L. Stoops finally gets over the hump against the Rebels after taking 3 losses by combined 7 points.
It's not really a crazy upset here, but I think the Cats are going to make it 4 in a row. I think they go down to the Swamp, beat Florida straight up again. Billy Napier falls to 0-3 against Mark Stoops. Kentucky will probably be a small dog in that game, and that it will be the game that starts Florida's big slide at the end of the year. And then I think you see that hot seat chatter really ramp up for Napier. But I think Florida falls to Kentucky again, and that gives a lot of people some real buzz and hope at the halfway point of the season.
My upset for the year is actually going to be Texas down in Austin. Welcome to the SEC, Texas. They're depleted at the running back position. They are a kind of a boomer bust program where they have national championship expectations. It'd be a really nice thing to close out the season on their senior day with one heck of an upset down in Austin.
The most likely upset on Kentucky's schedule this year is Ole Miss. I was there 2 years ago in Oxford. Kentucky should have won that game. I think it's, because this game starts also at 11 a.m. local time, it'll be a slow arriving crowd. People will still be waking up after a Friday night on the square, having a couple of mimosas in the Grove. It'll be, Kentucky can take advantage of that again. And Ole Miss has an elite offense, but Kentucky's defense is really good. So if Kentucky can pull off that win, it'll be a season-changing victory and bring a lot of possibilities into sight.
I don't have really any big upset picks. Honestly, I think Kentucky goes into Florida and wins that one handily. That one might be an upset in terms of the betting odds. But otherwise, I think it's going to be a lot of chalk for this Kentucky football team just because of how talented those high-end SEC programs are.
Biggest upset, a road win at Texas.
My upset pick, with an 8-4, I don't really have a big upset in there. I guess winning at Gainesville, that always feels like an upset even though Kentucky's a better team. But I'll tell the Longhorns to look out for Kentucky coming in there. Texas has a big game the following week. Maybe they'll be sleeping on Kentucky in their first year in the SEC, and the Cats can sneak in there and still win in Austin. I'll be there. I just booked my flight. I hope that's the case. We'll have lots of fun.